Bro, so you just got back from an Ironman, a half Ironman. At 21 years old, though, we were at breakfast before this, and I was like, "Dude, half Ironman at 23, that's crazy." And he's like, "I'm 21." So, dude, first, congrats.
Thank you.
But
Appreciate that.
how was that? What is a half Ironman? What does that consist of for everyone who's unaware?
Yeah, absolutely. So half Ironman is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and then a half marathon, so 13.1 miles consecutively. So back to back to back.
And you were racing. It wasn't just like I'm going to do it to do it. You're like, I want to get the best time possible.
Yeah, as like an athlete, in my mind, I'd never sign up for a competition, just to like, participation award. So I kind of had a goal in mind. I wanted to go under 5 hours for it. Went 4:55. So I ended up going fifth in my age group. And that was like first triathlon too. So it was like big learning experience, but overall great, just feeling great environment for the race. Like I had a damn good time.
Nice. Hell yeah. Wait, bring this a little bit closer, by the way.
Yeah, my bad.
Just like a fist away. There you go. Wait, so how many other young people are doing it? Because that's like, I feel like it's, at least in the pictures I've seen and what I've heard from it, it's mostly adults.
Yeah.
Like people who really have their shit together. There's not many 21-year-olds really taking anything that seriously. Nonetheless, an Ironman. So what's that like? Are there people your age there? Or is it mostly adults?
There are people it definitely is majority like 30 years old and older. I was trying to make friends and people just weren't that friendly because they're like, who's this 21-year-old kid trying to talk to me right now? But I think there are maybe 55, 60 people in my 18 to 24 age group. So it's definitely on the smaller side, and there were like 1,500 people in total doing it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then what does it cost? Like what? Because it's not just a race. Like I'm sure there's tons of prep. You got to have people there to help you. Like, what does it cost to sign up? What does the prep for that look like?
So I believe that the like normal sign up fee for a half Ironman is like around like $600, which is pretty crazy for race entry. But like I understand because it is a whole event. It's not just like a marathon. There are a lot of like safety precautions that are taken. There's a whole like village that they set up for like bike repair and everything. When you break down the expenses, like swimming, it's just like, okay, you need like a swim cap and goggles. Running, you need running shoes. Biking is like this is why like more people aren't into, I believe, like Ironman triathlon, because like it's expensive. So I just went on like kind of like Facebook Marketplace, ended up getting like a pretty good deal. But you need like a bike, you need cycling shoes, cycling cleats, jerseys, helmet.
That helmet you were wearing is crazy.
Yeah, that helmet was
like something out of Tron.
Literally, it was a space helmet. It was super fun to wear. Tri-suit. There's just like a bunch of like little things that add up, which is like obviously some of them you can get like, a better brand or a cheaper brand. But if you're like training to compete in it, training for like a specific time, like you kind of want to have the best products. So like you like realize like, okay, like I can invest a little bit more because it's going to translate to better performance. And like that's my priority.
Yeah, it's an expensive sport, I imagine. Not like the competing, the training. I'm sure that most of the other people there are kind of all like are somewhat successful, right? Businessmen, athletes, stuff like that.
A lot of people that are like, they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
There were very few people that I met that were a lot older than me that were like, oh, this is my first time doing one of these. A lot of the guys I talked to, like, yeah, this is like number 6 for me. I'm just like, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's like it's a lifestyle though. What do you say? Like, you don't just say, I'm going to go do that one day. It's like you're that kind of person that's
100%.
been doing stuff like that for a while.
And I think it's just like everything with fitness. Like you meet someone who is like very dedicated to, their health, like overall, it translates and kind of expands into other properties of their life. Like they're dedicated to their work, their relationships, like it really stems outward.
And then for you and your work, obviously, for everyone who doesn't know who Lukas is, huge fitness influencer.
Not huge. Not at all.
Pretty fucking big, bro. You got a big whole like following, especially like this early on, both YouTube, social media, short form as well. Like you're killing it.
Appreciate it.
But how long have you been doing this for? Like take us back to early fitness days. Was it just simply, when did you first start working out? Seriously.
So, I mean, I played sports my whole life. I grew up playing baseball and I swam competitively. And then I got to high school and at like 5 feet tall, 110 pounds, I'm like, I'm going to play football. My mom was like, absolutely not. You're going to die. But I stuck through it anyway. So I played football and rugby for all of high school. And then I played a little bit of collegiate rugby at like the club level just because USC didn't have like a varsity team. And then I kind of switched over to just like purely lifting. But I really got into lifting in May of my senior year of high school. COVID happened, and it was just my cousin and I, who's like my best friend. Him and I do everything together, and we're like, we can't do anything right now. We both played sports growing up. It was just like no sports were going on. So we ended up kind of like building a gym in his basement. And then from there on out, like it was a classic bro split when we first started. I was like chest every other day, curls every day.
Yeah.
But just like through trial and error, through learning and like watching a ton of YouTube videos, we like built out a split and just kind of continued on. So that was May of 2020. So I would say it's about like been 4 years of like dedicated weightlifting. And then I started getting like really into running end of my freshman year of college. So like a year later.
Why? Just you're like, because a lot of people these days see like running on social media. That's how I started doing it. What made you want to start doing it? Not just like a casual jog here and there, but like actually pushing yourself. Marathons, Ironmans now, like training for a full Ironman soon.
Yeah.
What made you want to like really do it to the fullest extent?
Because I was bad at it. Like I would go for like a 2-mile run around USC's campus, and I would be like winded, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like me as a human being, I need to be like pretty good at everything I do, because like I put a shit ton of effort into it.
Yeah.
So if I'm putting effort into something, I expect myself to like see improvements over time. So I really like broke it down. End of my freshman year, I could like barely run 3 miles, and then in June,
it's like me right now.
There's always room for progress. You fucking got it. In June, I was just like, I'm gonna run a half marathon, like having never ran more than 3 miles. So I like did it around my neighborhood. And I was in so much pain, like probably like the worst pain I've ever been in after.
Not like a scheduled, like professional.
No, a solo half
just
marathon.
like, okay, I'm going to run 13 miles, whatever it is. Okay.
I looked up what a half marathon was. It was 13.1 miles. I'm like, that's 10.1 more miles than I've ever ran before. Like, let's do it. And it sucked. But then after that point, I'm just like, okay, now I'm going to do these until they don't suck anymore. And then from there, I just kept working. And then it was March of my sophomore year, so probably like give or take like 6 months, 7 months later, I ran my first marathon. That was the LA marathon in 2022, and kind of same beat as like the half marathon. Didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what electrolytes or any supplements were. Went like okay, but I definitely knew I was just like, I want to get better at this. And then it's just always been that kind of push where like I know I didn't grow up running. I know I kind of just had like a classic like sprint background with football and rugby. So I'm just like, okay, like now it's my time to get really good at this.
Where does that come from? That desire to get better, especially it's something that's like not that fun at the beginning. Is there an insecurity deep down? Is there a need to prove yourself to something? Where do you think that motivation and desire comes from?
Yeah, really, and I'll put on a little sob story real quick.
Oh, that's great.
When I was 12 years old, my dad was the train conductor for Metro North train line. So that runs from New Haven, Connecticut to Grand Central in New York City. And he was working on a defective train in April of 2015. And the train actually electrocuted him. And as a result, he lost his left leg, entire body covered in 3rd-degree burns, had to get airlifted from Yale Hospital to Bridgeport Hospital for 5 months, like had to relearn how to walk, how to talk. Like it was definitely a really big point in time for my family. And at 12 years old, I kind of decided like I was going to be someone that like my mom didn't have to worry about. I was going to be someone that like my family could look at and be like, that is a source of like security in us. Yeah. So every single thing from that moment on, which I think kind of a lot of people look at me, they're like, you're 21. I thought you were so much older. And like people have always told me like, oh, you're mature for your age. Cause like since I was 12, so like 9 years ago, I've always like had in mind, like, okay, like I'm going to be someone who nobody has to worry about. So
like you're going to be the dad of the group.
Essentially. Yeah. I looked at my 2 older brothers and I looked at my sister and I looked at my mom and I'm like, I'm going to be someone that like holds us together. I'm going to be like the glue for this family. So I busted my ass in school, busted my ass in sports. Like no matter what it was, like I was putting as much effort as possible into it because I was just like, if I can provide for my family, if they can look at me and see like this kid's happy, this kid's working hard, even when shit's pretty tough right now. Like that's positivity right there.
Dude, good for you. I appreciate you talking about that as well. I think that's so valuable because a lot of people online might see someone who in a lot of aspects is like a tryhard in every area of their life. And I think they get upset about that because it makes them feel insecure or makes them feel like they're not trying hard enough. But the reality is like, there's a very good reason for it, for having that motivation. And it can actually be a source of motivation for them too, which is, I assume, why you make content, right? Like
100%.
And it's helped probably thousands of people. Like your fans love you.
Yeah.
And not just like in an entertaining way, but also like helping them get fit, helping them achieve their potential. So I think that's fucking sick, bro.
Yeah, I try to be like very authentic and like communicate like what's actually going through my head, because like you'll see a lot of these athletes and it's just like unwavering confidence. They kind of have like a chip on their shoulder and just like, no, at least not for me. Like that's not who I am. You know, I'm an emotional human being. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. So like I very much so demonstrate that. I never try to portray myself as like above it or cocky, because like I remember growing up and I would like cry myself to sleep because I was so disoriented about like my life and my family. I was insecure about how like I was late to puberty in high school. I was like 5'2", 5'3" until like my junior year, you know, like it was just kind of like a build of things. But I've always been this person that just like unapologetically myself. You know, I've looked at other people and there have been times where I've questioned like, why am I not like them? Why am I not normal? And it's taken me like a lot of like self-reflection to learn like, fuck normal. Like who wants to be normal? Nobody's ever done anything exceptional from doing what like everyone else has done. So I think like that's like a big thing that I try to portray in my content. Just like, don't try to fit in, like create your own mold and follow that.
Dude, fully agree. And I think once again, I think it's really important and valuable that you kind of like touch on those early, you know, behind the scenes stories, because that gives other people out there, you know, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm a lot more like him than I think in the early days. And I can do that too. So I think it's extremely valuable. So thank you for telling us that.
Yeah, cool.
But dude, so you go into college, you go to USC, which is a phenomenal school. It's my dream school, actually. I didn't get in. They didn't want me. But
bad taste.
But you got in like really early, right? Didn't you say were you 17 when you got into college?
Yeah, so I was so I got accepted to USC early as well. Yeah. I got accepted in January, and I remember I was a busboy at like an Italian restaurant, and I got kind of like the email notification and just like, oh, you know, status update, and I thought it had to do with like financial aid. So I opened it up and it's just like, I got accepted, and I sent the screenshot to my buddy who was a year older that went there, and he calls me right away. He's like, dude, scroll down. I think you got a scholarship. And I scrolled down and it was just like, you have potential for scholarship. They're like, we want to fly you out and interview. So a week before COVID happened, like the first week of March of 2020, I flew out to California with my mom. And that was like the only time I ever visited USC. Interviewed there. It was like a panel interview. It was like me and then 2 other applicants and like 3 professors. And then I later found out, I think it was like towards the end of April, that I had received a full academic scholarship.
That's crazy. Yeah. Full ride.
Yeah. So
damn,
that was really cool.
To a school like USC is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Because what is it these days? Like 70K a year, 75?
It's like close to like 80K a year.
Oh my God.
It's nuts.
Bro. That's insane. And why was that? Just because you were just like stellar student and athlete and everything? Like what kind of led for that? That's hard to get at a big school like that. What enabled that?
I think it was just like the way, because like objectively on paper, like especially with the college application process, you look at these stats of like, I don't even know if they care about standardized test scores anymore, but like SAT, ACT, GPA, clubs, sports teams, all this stuff. And it's just like on paper, it was just like, yeah, like I checked all the boxes. But then like when I went and I interviewed, like once again, kind of getting back to what I said, like it was just like how I was talking to you. Like I was talking to these other people. I was like getting their input, making sure everyone felt involved in the conversation. And I guess just like the way that I portrayed myself, they're like, this is someone who's like comfortable. This is someone who's just like being genuine with their answers. Cause like they fact checked you. They had like your Common App pulled up on paper and they'd be like, oh, did you mean it when you said you wanted to join ROTC here? Like they asked one of the people that was, and he like stuttered and they like kind of like wrote some stuff down. I'm like,
damn.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they were keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, they're cutthroat with that. But like me, like everything they asked me, I was just like, yeah, like I wrote that down because I genuinely mean it. And I think just kind of like they had an appreciation for that. They're like, this is someone who's not trying to be anyone else other than themselves.
Nice. Hell yeah. And then you go and you join your fraternity and you're the youngest guy in the fraternity, and then you run for president. I was president too, as some people might know. So I understand how tough that is. And a lot of people online are probably like, what the fuck are you talking about? That sounds lit. That sounds awesome. It's not. It's like, if anything, it's like, sure, there does come some levels of respect with it, and I guess like a little bit a level of a popularity factor. But at the end of the day, you're the guy that's tripping balls when everybody else gets to have fun and is just like enjoying their college experience, and you're the one tripping balls because you're liable for everyone. You're the group leader. You're not able to pay anybody. Like, you're trying to convince people to do stuff for you. It's hard.
Yeah.
And you told me you were the youngest person, not only to be president, but you were the youngest person in your house when you were president. That's like crazy to me. Can you explain like how that happens? So you have to get, how many people are in your house first of all?
I think there is around 170 to 180 when I was president.
And you also got voted in during COVID, right?
No, I was the semester after. I was 2021.
Was the house in a good place though? Or was there like a lot of repairing needed? Not physically, but I mean like just in terms of...
I mean, I think I got to the point where like our exec board like was checked out as we were checking in, which like it happens every single year when you have like a year-long term in a fraternity. So the guys in charge just kind of like were hands off a little bit. Also, just at the time that I stepped into president, USC was kind of under fire, especially Greek life. There had been like a few conflicts with another fraternity and a few other fraternities on the row, just in regards to like their reputation. And we actually ended up going through like a disaffiliation process. So like all the fraternities at USC now are no longer recognized as like school-wide organizations. They're just like the fraternities of Southern California. And I was kind of the one that was in charge of making sure, like our alumni called me and they're like, you have to do this. And I was just like, all right, like I'm going to just do what I was told. But I kind of like led the charge with that with another one of the presidents. And that was definitely a chaotic first few months of presidency.
Maybe you learn a lot from that.
100%.
What makes you want to do that, by the way? What makes you want to, like, as a freshman, right?
Sophomore.
So just finishing your freshman year.
Yeah.
What makes you want to, instead of enjoying your college experience, want to like be that guy?
I think it stems back to like just always being like the dad of every friend group. Like I was always just like, even in high school, like my friends would be like, oh, like tell their parents that like Luke's going. And like sometimes I wouldn't even be there, but their parents would be like, oh, if Luke's there, like,
okay, I get it. It's all making sense.
Yeah. I was one of those kids. And I just I always carried myself like that. I always just like really cared about everyone. So I was just like, okay, like what can I do? And also this is what I kind of wanted to ask you, like what drew you to president? Like what made you want to run for that position explicitly?
Dude, damn, I haven't thought about that in a while.
Need a coffee break.
I think, yeah, go for it. I think, well, I was hated. Like I was not like a liked kid in the house. If it like there was one day freshman year when I was pledging where like one of the older kids came up and he's like, "What's your name?" I said Lukas. He's like, "Oh, you're the kid we're about to drop," and you're the kid we're dropping this week. Of course, my heart like sinks and I'm like, "What?" Like, if you don't understand how Greek life works, you join a big friend group, and like your identity becomes that friend group because those are the people that are like you. And if then you hear that you're getting, imagine you're like in a really awesome friend group in your high school or later in life, whatever. And you hear like through a friend, not directly, that like actually no one fucks with you.
Yeah.
That's it sucks. It's like that is your life in college. And it's worse because if you get kicked out, you know, you can't really like, it's not like the real world where you can go find like other friends really. Like you kind of are fucked, right? So you like transfer, especially at a school like U of A.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, fuck. I'm like tripping balls, right? Like, what did I do wrong? You know, why don't they like me? The truth is, like, I was just annoying, but
you were young. You were a freshman. You know,
I was young, immature. I just hadn't really like maybe like black sheep in some ways, and people just didn't like me. And so then COVID happened, and I go home, and I actually like sit there in my room by myself for 3 weeks. And my internet at my house is like up in the mountains.
Yeah.
So the internet's ass. So I couldn't really even like play games or anything. So I kind of just had to sit there for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I really thought to myself, like, dude, I'm really unhappy in my social scene at school. I'm unhappy with who I see in the mirror. And it was kind of like an existential crisis. Yeah. And so I just thought like, you know what? Like I'm going to come back from this COVID thing, you know, hopefully if we're allowed to go back next year to school, and I'm just going to come back a completely different person. So I changed like everything about me. I changed how I dressed, grew my hair out, just did like nonstop push-ups and squats and shit in my room. And I literally came back the next semester like looking like a different person. Everyone was like, what happened to fucking Pactor, right?
Yeah.
Literally. And I think that's really important. A lot of people might not like the way others look at them, or maybe they feel like they don't have respect from others, and they're friend group, their peers, whatever. If you want to change that, you can achieve a lot. You can literally change your mindset. You can change who you are. But if you still look the same, a lot of people are going to literally look at you the same.
Yeah.
So I literally came back looking like a different person. And then all of a sudden, like, people did start to like me. And I had matured a lot, right? I took a step back and I realized, like, you know, maybe I fucking talk too much, or, you know, maybe I'm trying too hard to gain others' approval. So I just stopped with all that.
Yeah.
And I come back and our house is in shambles. We were like one of the top houses on campus prior. And then, like, just no one gives a shit anymore. People are breaking stuff. The current president was pretty checked out, it felt like to me. And no one wanted to run for president because it's the middle of COVID. There's like more liability than ever. No one is paying their dues. It's like literally like picture like a real business, like going to shit.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to take over? You have nothing to gain, everything to lose. That's kind of how it was. That's how other people thought of it. For me, I thought, okay, if I could just get us through this tough period right now, which we didn't know when COVID was going to end, but I was like, if I can get us through this, then I'm going to be the man after, right? Like, that was really my mindset. So I was like, I'll run for president, and everyone was like, why, dude? Like, the house is like going to be gone in a year. That's what people thought.
Yeah.
But I ran. And I won pretty easily. There was one other guy who tried to run against me last minute, but it didn't really, it was just too late at that point.
Yeah.
But I like didn't have respect from the older guys because I was younger, which I'm sure you had to deal with a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just looked at like the long-term view. So like the first half of the year sucked. But then the second half of the year, when COVID kind of went away and we came back to school and our house was like kind of top house again, like it was awesome. It was a good time. But I literally just did it because, number one, I thought it was like a challenge. And I don't know. I think some people just kind of have like, I don't want to call myself like a born leader, but I like to look at myself as like the guy. I want to take on like the responsibility and the risk and the life. I want to be like the guy who people look to when times are really tough. And I'm like very proud of that. So that's kind of why that was a long answer, but
no, it was perfect. And I think it like really like encaptures like that kind of final growth. Like, you need some type of challenge because like you said, you had that period of time where you went through that like self-revelation of just like, I'm at a point right now where I'm not comfortable with who I am. Like, I want to change. And like, you can do a shit ton, but it's just like when you face adversity, when you get challenged with something, like taking on a load of responsibility and like literally being, like you said, the face of 100+ guys, that's when it really challenges. It's just like, okay, like, did you mean everything that you said? You know, you put in the work to change, now prove it to others. And I think that's what it comes down to, is just like, when you are in like a really challenging time, it shows like your true character. And especially coming through that period of time where you were by yourself in COVID and you like wanted to see a newer version of yourself, it's just like, how do you portray that outwardly to the world?
And I think a lot of people who aren't in Greek life don't understand. Like, if you just haven't been in it, like, it might even sound silly, but that shit is tough. Like, right now, as you know, or maybe some people watching, like, I run a business that brings in a couple million a year. Like, we have tons of employees, lots of responsibility. There's months, like plenty of months, when I haven't paid myself and I like need to pay my employees. That being said, like, being president was literally harder. It was genuinely harder because I don't know how big yours was, but for us, it was like, we were probably bringing in a little over $1 million a year in revenue from all the students. You have to worry about 30 different committees that you have to convince people to like run for, and then you essentially have 30 employees under you, but no one's getting paid. And everyone's like a drunk college student. All they're trying to do is have fun. So you're trying to convince them to work, and you have to get really good socially at like trying to get people to do things and just making them feel important. Like, that was the biggest lesson I learned. Whenever I had to get someone to do something, I'd be like, dude, Luke, you know, I need your help. I can't do this without you. Like, the guys in the house respect you. And that's why you need to help me make sure that the house is clean by 9:00 tonight. Right. And pick up the broom and do shit.
Like, heat of the moment. It's like the end of the world where you're like, oh my God, we need to get this done. And then as soon as you like finish your term as president, or as soon as like now, like you're looking back on the experience, you're like, I can't believe I took it that seriously. Like, you but like you have to, you know, because like you said, like, you're responsible for all these people who literally have nothing to lose. at any point, someone who's just like a dedicated position, you know, or delegated position, can just be like, yeah, you know, I'm 20 years old. Like, it's really not that deep. I don't want to do this anymore. So like you said, you have to constantly reassure people of their role, of their importance to like the overall contribution of the house. It's stressful.
Dude, no one ever says, here's another thing. No one ever says like, you're expected to perform. So like, no one will ever say thank you. I don't think anyone ever
Thankless
said
job.
Thank you to me once. But what happens is if you don't like make shit happen, if there isn't that party every Thursday or whatever, every Saturday, if your house gets kicked off, anything like that, if anything goes wrong, everyone is going to let you know about it. And you're going to be the guy that like ruined everyone's college experience. We literally got, I don't know if you got something similar, but we got in a big hazing investigation.
Okay.
And one day, and I'm like literally getting ready for like the biggest presentation of the year in my business class. And I get a call from our national advisor and he's like, yeah, well, they know what you did, and Nationals is on a plane over right now, and yeah, you're fucked. Good luck. And then he hangs up, and I had no idea what was going on because I'm like, bro, I don't fucking take pledges. Like, I'm literally I'm making sure like the meetings are happening and like Nationals and everything is under control and all that. So I'm tweaking, and you know, then all of a sudden, like your whole world is crashing down because you're either the guy that gets your house kicked off because you didn't perform, or you save the day. But no one's saying thank you if you save the day. It's just like expected. Yeah. Thankfully, we were good because there actually wasn't any hazing happening. But yeah, I'm curious if you ever went through like some crazy shit like that where it really was like, it seemed, obviously it seems kind of dumb at this point, but it seemed like the world was kind of crashing down.
Yeah, and it's like the definition of like, I can't believe I worried that much about it. But it was my first term as president, first semester as president, and USC, because of just kind of like some conflicts with the house, like they banned all social. So you had to like do a ton of, every single member of the house had to do like a 3-hour Zoom workshop and all this stuff to like earn back your right to have a social
Yeah, no
life.
one's pulling up to that shit.
So I had to stress out, make sure every single guy, even the seniors that weren't paying dues, like they literally sent me a list and they were like, I was just like, these people aren't in the house anymore. They're like, well, we have them on here, so like figure it out. So like I went through, I think it was like my first like 3 weeks of classes. And like, I think I went to like 2 or 3 classes because I was more worried about, like you said, like you're the guy that if like we don't have social, it's your fault. Or like if you do have social, it's like, well, that was expected. Like what, we're not going to thank you. But I made sure that every single guy did all the workshops, and our house was like the first house to be like approved to have a party. And we put like $40,000. It was like our big party. You know, we wanted to start off big.
Who'd you guys get to DJ?
Oh my God, I can't even remember. It's like a meme in our house now because like I'll get to that. Let me get to that. But like we put $40,000 into like this one event, and like the whole school is coming. Essentially, it's like a massive thing. I think like 1,200 people ended up showing up like in our backyard. And it's the day of the event, and I get a call from the head of student affairs at USC. She's like, "Hey, you have 4 members on the lacrosse team that missed their workshop." And I checked, and they had a game scheduled during the workshop, like a scrimmage or something. Yeah. And I like sent them the schedules and everything. I'm like, there literally was no way. You guys didn't offer any time. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to allow, like, if you have that party, like you will be banned. Like we're going to, like, and I was just like, it was the day of the event. So I call our alumni advisors to like, don't have the party. I'm like, we spent $40,000 on it. They're like, you're gonna eat that chart. I'm like, nobody. Like once again, like nobody understands how serious like I was taking it. So I go in front of the vice president of student affairs. Like I like am like emailing her, and I'm like, I'm on campus right now. I will come to you in your office and like pitch to you why it should be a thing. So I go to her, and I can say this now because like obviously it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. But I presented a plan to her that we were gonna have those members removed from the house. And like I had like a full formal like process, like our board of advisors coming to have them like disbanded as members of our fraternity until like further notice, until they complete the workshops. And I guess I was a pretty convincing human being because she was just like, fine, you guys can have the party. So, and I was running this, I totally forgot about this.
That's crazy. You're like, yeah, I've already spent $40,000 on this lady. Like there's people are going to pull up regardless, even if we do send it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was running a 102 fever. Like I was so sick. Jeez. So like I was like literally just like felt so out of it. They give us approval. I go back home, and I had told like very few people that like what was going on because I didn't want to like tell the whole house and have it blow up. Yeah. So I call our social chairs and like, we're good. They're like, oh my God, let's go. 1,200 people show up to the party. It lasts an hour and a half, and then LAPD pulls up, shuts it down.
Fuck.
Like $40,000 down the drain. And then what was even better was it was like jungle themed because like we do like Tropic Thunder. And I got an email that Monday morning after having like the worst weekend of my life because people are angry because the party got shut down. I'm getting guys like Venmo requesting me for like paying dues, and I'm just like, whatever.
And they think you're probably pocketing that shit. That's crazy.
I'm like, you guys have no idea. Like, I don't get anything from this. Like, I actually lose hair. But the Monday rolls around and I get an email from the school newspaper, and they're like, we want to interview you about the event that you had this weekend and how like tone deaf you are to like what's happening worldwide. And I was just like, so I go and I sit down, and she asked me a question. She was like, why was like the greater USC community not aware that the theme was jungle and not like Tropic Thunder war theme? And I was just like, we literally have no contact. I was like, we posted on our socials, we messaged every single sorority, every single fraternity coming that like the theme was jungle. It had nothing to do with war. She was just like, was not having it. You can actually look this up if you look up like,
fuck that,
you
bro.
look up Luke Hopkins,
I literally got
USC.
canceled by a girl in college. So I know how that feels, bro. It's so annoying.
It was even better because I asked her at the end of it, like I was super respectful. I brought like literally all the receipts, all the facts, and I asked her, I'm like, if possible, could you just refer to me as like the president of Teak and not Luke Hopkins? Like I have like my whole life on the line. Yeah. And she's just like, I'm going to quote you how I want to. And I think my name came up like 14 times in the article. Like Luke Hopkins, like sentence after sentence, just like repeating, not even like he said. It was like Luke Hopkins said, Luke Hopkins said. I'm just like,
dude, people are brutal. Was this a journalist?
Yeah.
Student journal. Yeah, I had this one student journalist fucking write an article about me. Did I ever tell you about this?
No.
How this girl got reverse canceled?
Let me hear it.
So this girl tried to, first of all, a little side note. So the alumni came and helped you guys, right? When you needed it a little bit?
Towards, not for that party, no. Because like I just messaged them. I was just like, we're good, we're gonna have it. But like when it came to like after that party, they're like, we have to disaffiliate. There's no way they're shutting you guys down after an hour. And so like they kind of led that charge. But
I had this one alumni, he was like an ex-president from like 40 years ago, calls me because I had done everything to get us out of this hazing investigation. I was like, bro, you've interviewed every single one of my kids. If someone is getting hazed and they didn't feel safe, they would have dropped. Yeah. Everybody's still here. Everybody wants to be here. Everybody just literally wrote a letter to, like every single person like wrote a letter to you guys saying like nothing happened. Still, they're like, you're fucked, right? They're gonna kick us off. I had one alumni, I got a hold of him, and he was like an ex-president from 40 years ago, crazy successful, probably like a billionaire, rich Jewish dude. And he was like, he goes, yeah, I'm gonna make this go away for you guys. Don't worry about it. And like hangs up the phone. Literally an hour later, fucking President Robbins of U of A, like the president of the school is like, yeah, it's all good. Like, don't worry about it. It was gone. It was crazy. It was crazy how like you can do so much and try so hard, but like one person with like, because the fraternity, like, what's it called? IFC or whatever. Yeah. Like the whole council of fraternities and shit. Like there's like this group of like angry little people at the top of the board who just want to shit on you guys because your kid's having fun. But they're really not that important in the big fucking wheel. Right. Yeah. So when you get like the president of the school to say like, yeah, this is going to go away right now. Then, like, it's over. Yeah. So that was cool. That helped us. But dude, this girl tried to cancel me. And we sit down, we have coffee together. And she's like, hey, this is right after I started making content. And I probably had like, all my content was like business, self-help, confidence for guys, like just like good, positive stuff, right?
And you're trying to help people.
Literally was trying to help young guys specifically, but yeah, trying to help people and just talk about like how you can like, start a business, whatever. And this girl is like, I love your story. I love why you're doing this. I'd love to interview you. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. I was so excited. I was like, someone wants to interview me. That's awesome. And so we sit down for coffee and have a great conversation. And then 2 weeks later, or maybe 3 weeks later, the article comes out and it's like nothing at all like what we talked about. And she even she goes, Lukas Pachter, comma, who many refer to as the new Andrew Tate, comma, this was at the height of Andrew Tate's canceling, comma, a man accused of human sex trafficking and R word. And I text this girl, I'm like, hey, listen, like I know you're like an up and coming student journalist. Like I know you're trying to make your career or whatever, but like this is actually going to ruin my life.
Yeah.
And it's
defamation.
I literally said like, this is defamation. You literally cannot use those two words.
Yeah.
And Andrew Tate's name in the same sentence as me, because what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to read this and they're not going to know anything about me, and they're going to think I'm a piece of shit.
It's just affiliation by that one sentence.
Yeah, and she's going to go, well, it already got posted and I can't take it down. And so she kind of got like, she was trying to cancel me, and I made a video about it, and I was like, dude, there's no one I respect less than someone who like tries to boost their career by tearing somebody else down.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
My whole audience went crazy on her and just like kind of canceled her. So it all comes around.
It does. And I will say that a year later from that, like I had been finished president and everything, another student journalist by the name of Josh Flowers, huge shout out to Josh, I don't know if he's ever going to see this, interviewed me just like who I actually am, like not fraternity, like my
Good
story, being an athlete, put like together like a really great article, put together like a great video that I ended up posting on my Instagram like over a year ago. So it, like you said, like it definitely does come around, and the right people definitely do acknowledge when you're trying to do something good. But yeah, that's crazy.
Dude, what do you, that's a good question for you I have. What do you think about that? Because I know that I can say stuff that's sometimes irritating to some people or controversial, but I've known you for probably about half a year now. You're just a good, genuine dude trying to help people. Like you're really just like a good ass, genuine guy. And I respect you a lot as a friend. And, like social media, we work together sometimes. But then when people try and like go and lie about you online or just make shit up about you, how does that make you feel? Is that not incredibly frustrating? Because you're like, I genuinely am just trying my best to help others.
It used to frustrate me a lot more. I've read a few books, and I've also just like kind of like looked inwardly, and it's just like, okay, like I studied like neuroscience at USC, and I like kind of minor in psychology. So human perception, like the cognitive thought process, is something so individualized to humans. Like no other species does that. No other species like truly thinks and feels emotions the way that we do, at least like on our level. So if you're doing everything that you can, if you're focusing entirely on what you can control, your emotions, how you portray yourself, the way you dress, the way you act, and someone still has a problem with you, you literally just have to put your hands up in the air and be like, that's just them. Because if I wasted my cognition, if I wasted my energy trying to make someone else like me who doesn't even know me all the way, like only sees like, a TikTok of me, or doesn't know my story, or doesn't know like where I've came from, what I've worked for, like I'm wasting effort. I could be putting energy into like so much more positive things, or like even just acknowledging the people that don't know me, but they're supportive, So it's just like as a whole, like every single day we wake up and we have a battery. It's a social battery, it's an energy battery, it's whatever. And you decide what you want to use that battery for. It could be business, it could be relationships, it could be working out, like whatever you want to like disperse that battery. Not a single bit of me wants to use any of that energy trying to make people that don't know me like me. So it's just
That's
like
really valuable.
Yeah, it's like if you have a problem with me, and I heard it from Tom Holland, but like he quoted someone else. It's like, if you have a problem with me, text me. If you don't have my number, you're not relevant enough.
I think you got that from Christian Bale.
Yeah, exactly. That's who you got it from. I always see the comments like, he had that from Christian Bale. And like Tom Holland quotes him in that. So I'm glad that who, but yeah, it's just like, if you aren't close enough to me to like know me on a personal level, then like, I don't think it's worth my energy to try and convince you to like me. Like there's no point wasting effort.
Dude, that's great. I fully agree. And I'll be honest, there's times, 99% of the time it doesn't bug me at all. But there have been times when like someone will be in my comments and say something and I'll be like, damn, really, bro? Like I'm like, this is genuine. Like I just made a 3-minute long video on like how you can start your business too, and someone's in the comments saying scammer. I'm like, I'm literally just trying to help. So I think that's a great way to phrase it. And that's something that I'll try and apply more to my life. But I'm curious, like, so you're finishing up presidency, right? You're studying. How did you decide to study neuroscience, by the way?
Yeah.
It's got to be like one of the hardest majors, I guess, right?
I think like some of the engineering majors are really tough. I also started out as pre-med, so it was a lot harder because I had like those kind of requisites. And then I realized I don't want to be a doctor and spend 12 years in school. My older brother, and I know your brother too, med school, great guys, like super smart. Not for me. I'm more of like a social human being. So I kind of like dive into that. But we have another older brother, like my oldest brother, and he struggled a lot with his mental health over time. And then kind of just like reflecting on my personal experience with like what I was going through with my dad, I was like, okay, I want to do whatever I can to help people who struggle to help themselves. Like, and I was looking at psychology, and people are just like always like kind of like shitting on psychology, like good luck finding a career with that. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna minor in that because that's super important to me. But
crazy valuable skill, and it applies to everything.
100%. That's why I forget, I saw it one time on like TikTok, but like having like a major and a minor be like objective and subjective and have them complement each other. That's why I thought like psychology and neuroscience went really well together, because like objectively I can talk to you about the different neurochemicals going on in your brain. It's like why we're literally talking right now. Subjectively, I can tell you like, okay, like this is what we're feeling right now as two friends sitting in a room podcasting, you know, the social behavioral aspect of things versus like the neurochemical biological aspect of things. And I think those go like hand in hand. But yeah, I mean, my end goal is really to like work in like sports psychology with young athletes, because especially ages like 12 to 20, like 5, really, the human brain is like very much so malleable and it's developing. So a lot of people would be like, oh my God, like I finally hit the point where my prefrontal cortex, which is like the part of your brain responsible for like higher cognitive processing and decision making. They say like at like 25 is like the estimated date that like, or estimated age that like it's developed. And that's where a lot of people are like, oh, like that's like the mature aspect, or like the mature point of your life where you're like, okay, like I got to get my shit together. Which like, I think that early 20 period is like super important, even like adolescence as a whole, where like you should be trying things out. You should be like looking for experiences to learn not only what you do like, but what you don't like. So yeah, I just really want to like work with people or work with younger kids who are trying to like find their way. Cause I remember what it felt like to like not know my way, or to look at my brother and be like, I want to help people who are struggling like him.
Nice, dude. I'm curious your take on EQ versus IQ, because I know a lot of people, like if you have a high IQ, that's great. I think in business, especially in leadership, managing people, EQ is a lot more important. But you seem like you're someone that has both, which is extremely rare. That. And that'll do you a crazy amount of service throughout your life. I'm curious your take on the two.
Yeah. So I actually took a class this semester, just like it was an elective on like critical thinking, and it was crystallized versus fluid intelligence. So it's the exact same thing as IQ and EQ, where like crystallized intelligence is objective knowledge, like that's your IQ. Whereas like fluid intelligence, it's your emotional intelligence, that's EQ. And it was really cool because you need to have a balance of each, because you could have someone who is literally a prodigy, absolute genius, knows absolutely everything. If they fail to be able to like outwardly demonstrate that to the world, no one will ever be aware of how smart they truly are. Versus on the other side of things, if you have someone that's very outward with their emotions, they're not too rational with their thought process, they'll never get taken like seriously, even if they are being intentional, because it's just like, what are you pulling that from? Like, where are the facts that you're backing that up? So it's like kind of like a hand in hand, like you said, with like business, like you definitely do need to be able to like read the room and understand like, okay, am I like wasting my time pitching myself to someone who does not care at all about me? And that balance is just like, okay, like when I am presenting myself, I have to be both personable, but also like pulling from objective research and showing the results, and not just being like, yeah, you should believe in me and, you know, invest in my business because I'm a good guy. You know, it's just like, okay, like let me see your sales. Let me see your ROI. You know, it's just kind of like stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay. So, you know, you get this phenomenal major from a phenomenal school, right? And you could probably get a variety of really well-paying, prestigious careers or professions, right? But you decide to go into social media instead. I know we talked about that last time we were hanging out.
No, yeah.
Your some of your peers and your friends' parents were like, what are you doing, bro? Could you talk a little bit about like when you started social media, why you started social media, especially at the beginning? It is such a, not physically, but like an emotionally dangerous position to put yourself in, because you're just opening yourself up to immense amount of criticism from everyone and anyone. And there's no repercussions. Like if I talk shit to you right now, you can smack me or hit me or push me, whatever. Anyone online can talk shit and there's just nothing you can do about it. So what gave you like that motivation to actually start putting yourself out there, opening yourself up to attacks?
Absolutely. So it was January of 2023. It was the second semester of my junior year. I literally just finished up my term as president. And I was just like, okay, I just spent the last year and a half really, because I was risk management before I was president. So like I did like everything under the sun to keep the house going. I was like, I just spent the last year and a half doing everything for everyone else. Like I want to do something for me. Like what is something that I'm genuinely passionate about? And I looked, I'm like, I kind of really like this whole working out thing. I like being an athlete. Like it makes me feel good. Especially like I kind of talked about like being a late bloomer, like really starting to feel like I was comfortable in my own body at like 20 years old. So I just started posting on TikTok, and it was just like classic like workout content, few kind of things of just like me flexing in the mirror, showing off like my physique. But that's like classic. It was just like, okay, like
fitness TikTok, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was popping off. What was that? Probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Like a year and a half ago.
So like, yeah, but fitness TikTok started
like 2-3
Getting
years
big,
ago.
yeah. So like literally probably at the height of it, honestly.
Yeah, definitely close to it. So started getting a little bit of attention with that. And I was definitely like insecure about it because I was still living in the fraternity house, and everyone, I feel like you could probably relate to this, going from president where a lot of people respect you to posting on TikTok. People are like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But I kind of stuck with it. And I knew that a lot of guys actually had like respect for me because I compete, and that's something that like I've always prided myself on. So I was in the midst of training for my second marathon at the time, and I ended up getting picked up by, you know, BPN as like an ambassador for them. And that title literally meant nothing. It was just like, you can say you're an ambassador for BPN. We'll send you one free product a month, and like just scram.
But it makes you feel very proud.
It makes you feel over the moon, especially because like this was like the one brand. I never watched like fitness YouTube or like any other content like growing up. I found Nick Bear, who's like the CEO of BPN. I read his book, and then that's
I didn't know you had a book. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's 25 hours a day, and that's what got me. I was just like, oh, this is a guy who's bigger and he runs. Like I'm trying to do that, you know, and that where is I going with that? Oh, but like being an ambassador for them, that was just kind of like the start. And then that led me to a good community. After the marathon, I was like, I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. And then I went and did a bodybuilding show, and I went first in my class in that. I'm like, okay, like what am I going to do next? I'm going to do a powerlifting meet. Went did that, won my class. Went and did like another bodybuilding show after that, because I was like, okay, I want to be a professional bodybuilder. So, and like the span of like 5 months, 6 months, I did a marathon, a powerlifting meet, and 2 bodybuilding shows.
It's crazy.
And then I ended up becoming a professional bodybuilder in the natural division at 20 years old. So I think my desire to compete really drew a lot of attention to me. It's like, oh shit, like this guy's...
I'm doing it anyway, why not post
Yeah,
about it?
exactly. And people are like, this guy's serious enough to like, he like... Posting on social media, that's putting yourself out there, and like stepping on stage or like putting yourself in like a public display of like, okay, like we said, kind of like emotional intelligence and or EQ and IQ. You know, you could be like super smart, not know how to like demonstrate that outwardly. No one has an idea. You could be a freak athlete, not demonstrate that outwardly. No one has any idea. So like, that's like something that like I've always believed in. It's just like, I'm not doing this for other people, but I'm doing this for myself. By putting myself out there, I'm going to grow. I'm going to learn from others and show like, hey, like you don't have to have it all figured out. You know, like my first bodybuilding show, I had no clue what I was doing, but I was just like, I'm going to learn through this process. I'm going to step on stage. I'm going to see how it goes. And I think that like my like favorite message to receive from people is like, this is my first time doing this, and like you inspired me to do it, whether it be like signing up for a competition, whether it be like starting running. It's just like you it's like the classic quote, like you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to have figured it all out to start your own business, but you have to start your business to eventually like try and figure it all out. And you'll never figure it all out. You'll never be perfect. Yeah, exactly. But you're going to be a lot more developed. You're going to grow a lot more than if you never started. So I just continued to compete since I've done like another marathon. I did an ultra marathon, and then most recently the half Ironman. But I just like that gives me life, especially as like the former athlete. Like I love the idea of setting out for a goal and just like showing up. It's a game day for me. You know, that half Ironman, I'm like smiling, having a good time. But in my head, I'm like, as soon as that whistle blows, as soon as like the horn goes off to start the swim, like I'm locked in.
And then okay, so that brings up a good question I had. How long do you get to enjoy that feeling of crossing the finish line before it kicks back in and you're like, all right, I need to do a full one now, or I need to beat my time? You know what? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How long do you get to like enjoy and like celebrate before your brain immediately goes back, all right, now what's the next thing?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not very long at all. It's just like
a climb is better than the view.
100%. Well, it's because I think I just love the process so much. Like the process itself of training is something I find so much joy in. Like I could sit and ride a bike for hours and just like, I don't listen to music when I ride. I literally will just like turn my brain off, like go for runs.
No music. That's crazy.
Yeah, I do all my training, like weightlifting, running. I mean, you can't, when you swim, you can't listen to music, but like anything I do it just like no music, because I treat it as practice. And I'm just like, okay, like when I played sports, I didn't have headphones in. This is my sport right now. Like I don't have headphones in. I'm taking this seriously. So, and I feel like I like end up getting a lot more mental benefit from it too.
Yeah. What do you think about? Do you think about nothing and just zone in?
It's kind of a balance of both. There'll be like periods of time where I'm just like thinking, okay, like what am I going to do after this? What's my day going to look like? And then there's also times where it's just like, I'm looking around, I'm like, wow, it's a pretty tree. I'm enjoying the view around me, and I'm just demonstrating my gratefulness to be able to move my body, because like that's what like I like to like always say is like, you never have to do anything, you get to do it. Like you don't have to run it, you don't have to run a business right now. You get to do it. You get to be in that position where it's just like you are responsible for others. And like that means a lot to you. Like I don't have to do these competitions. I don't have to train. I get to do it. So it's just like that's what I try and remind myself a lot, especially when like the training sessions get harder or it gets like a hard effort portion. I'm just like, yeah, like this is supposed to hurt. This is supposed to be difficult. Like same as like you're trying to expand your business or you're product testing for something new. It's just like, yeah, this is supposed to be, you know, difficult, because if it worked out every single time, you lose value in it. And that's like what like I kind of shied away from with powerlifting and bodybuilding. Was like I went 2 for 2 in first place in bodybuilding. I went 1 for 1 in first place in powerlifting. With endurance sports, like I'm naturally not the best at that. People look at me when I say I run marathons and I'm a triathlete. They're like, no, you don't, just because of the way I look.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love the fact that I still have so much, like in my mind, like room for growth. And I feel like it's the same with like running a business. Like if you literally just had one product and it just like, yep, always worked out, you're like, well, like I want to try something new. And they were just like, no, you have to only have that one product. You like would lose interest in it, because it's just like, okay, it's the same thing over and over and over. Whereas like if you're trying out these different things, trying out these different designs, different colorways, seeing what works, what doesn't, that's the fun. That's the process.
Yeah.
So that's what I have.
Dude, that's super valuable. I love that. I don't have to do it. I get to do it. The same thing just happened. By the time this episode gets released, we might be in the middle of it. But yeah, we had a friend or a guy that works for me, I call him LinkedIn Funnel Boss. All he does is like he gets paid to connect me with people. He has no deliverables.
Yeah.
He has no hours. He has some months he won't do anything. Some months he's extremely valuable. And his whole job is to help me like meet people. And because that's all he does.
Yeah.
And he connected me with a friend who runs this like fund that helps companies raise. They're super selective and they choose you if they really like you, and then they essentially like go out and do the work for you. And you still have to show up and you have to close. But they, as opposed to like normally when you're raising for your company, you're cold emailing and DMing like crazy.
Yeah.
200 meetings within a couple of months, right? Multiple times a day. And you're just pitching people and getting rejected over and over and over. And we didn't really consider like raising. I was like, we don't really need to. But then this opportunity came about and he was like, this guy really wants to help you, and he gets a piece of it. He gets a cut. But then I decided like a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I don't like have to do this, but like I get to do this, right? And this will be a cool experience.
100%.
So we said, yeah. So now we're testing that out, but it is the same thing as in an essence as working out or anything else. Anything that's hard, yeah, you get to do it. You don't have to do it. So I love that, dude. But then, you know, obviously it's going well for you, right? And you're winning these competitions and your social media following is growing. At what point, we kind of talked about this at breakfast, at what point did you realize like, you know what, I could go like the safe route here that my parents and my friends' parents and my grandma and everybody else around me expects me to go, which is like get a great job because I have a great major from a great school.
Yeah.
But instead you decided like, I'm going to go make TikTok, right? And I'm going to go make YouTube videos. Like, explain that for us. How do you like overcome that criticism from those in your own world, but also like deal with the kind of fact that this is like an incredibly unreliable and scary profession? Yeah.
I mean, really, I was my own, like, I was my biggest critic. Like, I was the one getting in my own way. So after I kind of started with social media, I ended up like starting my own like coaching business. Just like I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. So like I kind of had the credentials with it. And I'm like, okay, like I'm going to leverage this social media following to start something that I could see profit from. Cause like I don't see any money from TikTok, you know? So I was just like, okay, like I want to start trying to see like, can I take this full time? So like within 3 or 4 months of me starting, I started coaching guys, and I eventually ended up like launching my own website in last summer, and just kind of expanded my coaching business. And it very much so, like at probably the start of my senior year, like you look at it and just like, I could do that full time. Like I could just continue to scale that and continue to run that full time. And it got to a point like the start of my second semester of my senior year, so January, and I hit this kind of like mental funk. And I was just like, I look around and I see all my friends and they have their jobs lined up for next year. They all know what they're doing. And I'm just like, why am I different? And I really don't know. I think it was just kind of like we have these transition periods in our life, you know, graduating high school, graduating college, moving to a new city, and you kind of question yourself. You question like, am I the person I say I am? Like it's almost like imposter syndrome because you're moving on to this new period of life where like technically you move to a new city, you can be whoever you want to be. Graduating from high school to college and like you go to a college that like nobody
reset.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking, I'm approaching this reset like, who am I and what do I want to do? And at the time, like I just like wasn't fully enjoying social media. I just like had gotten into my own head about it. And it wasn't until like end of February, I like sat down with like two of my really good buddies and we went to like Joshua Tree National Park, and it was just like a mental reset. And I just like cried my eyes out and I was like, dude, what am I doing? Cause like I had a job in New York lined up for healthcare consulting. Like I was fully ready to just like, yep, I'm just gonna like never post that
Pretty good job
again.
Too.
It was pretty fair. You know, it was one of those things that like you could like very much so work your way up the ladder after contributing a concerning amount of hours. But like it, like, you know, the opportunity for growth was there. And I was just like, this is secure, this is safe, it matches what my friends are doing, you know? And that was something that, you know, I'm gonna talk about, but it's just like, you don't always have to do what everyone else is doing. Like to do something that others haven't, you have to do something that like others aren't doing. So what I mean by that is like, if you want to be exceptional in life, if you want to accomplish a lot, inspire a lot of people, like you have to do something different. And innately with doing something different, there's going to be periods of time that you're doing stuff alone. And I know you've talked about it a lot where it's just like, you'll be hanging out with your friends and you'll be, or I mean, this might be like in the past, but you'll be like, oh, I have to go like record some content right now, record some TikToks because like you're trying to do something different. And like that involves you having to separate from the group for a period of time to do something. And that was very much so me with training is like, I spent a lot of time training alone. You know, a lot of my really good friends weren't as committed to fitness as I was. And like, that's not a bad thing at all. It's just like they had different interests. So I spent like a lot of time alone and questioning myself. And I just realized it was like, I don't have to be normal. Like, I don't have to be like everyone else because I never have been and I never will be. Like I look inwardly, I'm like everything that I've done up until this point, like I've always known that I wanted to do something bigger than just like helping myself. Like I want to help other people with it. So end of February, I kind of had that revelation, got my shit back together, started posting on social media again, started like really diving in on coaching and trying to like expand and scale. And then it was my spring break. So like end of March, middle of March, I came down to Austin, visited my good friend Ian, met Noah, Tin, Darren. And it was just like, I love Austin. Like this is a good spot. Signed with BPN as an athlete beginning of April, and then signed my lease end of April, graduated May 10th, moved down here May 15th. So the span of like 3 months, I 180'd my entire life. I went from healthcare consulting in New York to posting on TikTok. You know, that's what I love to say. It's just like, yeah, like I went to school for neuroscience to post on TikTok. Like I think it's funny to say that because like obviously I do a lot more than just post on TikTok, but like it's just funny.
No, I totally get it. And so what's the long term? Where do you see yourself like 5 and 10 years from now? What's that long term plan?
Yeah. Kind of touched on a little bit, but I want to get into like sports psychology and helping athletes because like with my coaching right now, I try and make it very like personable and understanding. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to give you a program and expect you to do every single little thing. Like what's going on in your life? Do you have, you know, family matters? Do you have job matters that are causing us to have to like adjust our schedule around? And I think that like psychological inhibition of performance is such like a relevant thing in young athletes where like these kids are like so much pressure on themselves to land a college scholarship or to like make it to the pro leagues that like they'll grind and grind and grind, and then game time comes around and like they make like a stupid mistake because like they're so worried about messing up as opposed to like enjoying the experience of performing. So if there's any way in which like I could use my degree, and I'm definitely going to go back to school just because like higher credibility factor. And Dr. Hopkins sounds like pretty damn cool if I'm going to be real. So, nice. But yeah, I definitely want to step into the field of sports psychology, then maybe pivot into like clinical psychology and just continue to, you know, help people who struggle to help themselves.
Nice. Hell yeah. Are you going to stick with the personal brand the entire time? Like you kind of have, like how sick would that be if you have like Dr. Hopkins, blue check mark, 1.5 million one day, just like Dr. Huberman, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of something you'd like to continue with, the content, maybe writing books, you know, much more professional on the content side of things?
100%.
Maybe your own podcast. I know you mentioned you used to have a podcast.
Yeah, I used to like, it was called like Perspective Points, and I used to like really dive in on that. And then it just got to a point in time where right now, like, it's not something I can like fully devote effort to. So like, I don't want to like half-ass it. But yeah, absolutely. Because I think it would be really cool. And I'm lucky. And same with you. Like we started making content young, like 20 years old is like so young, like 20, 21, 22. So if you want, like you could literally carry this journey on like for as long as social media is a thing. Yeah. So I think it would be really cool if, you know, all things go well and it's just like you can look back on like the starting days of, you know, where I was back in undergrad and college, then eventually sent me into grad school, then eventually, and like same with like all my competitions and whatnot. It was like what my life looked like during bodybuilding prep versus marathon prep versus Ironman. It's just like a continuation of telling your own story, which is why I think social media can be like such a positive thing, because it's just like an outlet for anyone. Anyone can like do what we're doing right now. Like you and I are not very different from just like a lot of people. Like anyone has their phone, you could set it up, you can talk, you can post on social media. It just involves a simple effort of like starting. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to just continue to tell my story.
Hell yeah. Do you have any tips for anyone out there who heard exactly what you just said and they're like, I want to do that too? Maybe they don't even want to like make a living off of it. Maybe they just want to get over that fear of posting, or maybe they want to start a personal brand, right? Do you have any advice in that field?
Yeah. It's going to be like a little bit of hard love, but it's just like figure it out yourself, because the amount of people that DM me and like will reach out and they're like, I want to start, I don't know how. I didn't know how.
Yeah.
You didn't know. I feel like nobody knows how, because like we kind of talked about, like nobody's perfect. If you knew how, like it takes out the fun in it. The fun is figuring out how. The fun is figuring out what content does well for you, what doesn't, you know, what you want to share with the world. Like that's the fun part. And that's where you figure out like, okay, this is working for me. This is how I can continue to build an audience. It's just like involving the simple effort of starting. And then number 2, I would say, is don't listen to anyone's opinion but yourself, because the amount of times people, like I kind of said before, like everyone's going to have an opinion about something. That's like how human beings work. Like if you waste energy trying to convince everyone to like you, you'll never fully like yourself. So really just like if you're passionate about posting something, don't think like, oh, what are my friends going to think of me when I post this? What is it? Just like post it. Like if you look at something, you're like, yeah, you know, like I'm proud of this. I enjoy it. Post it. Don't care about what other people think.
Yeah, dude. To be honest, I fully agree with you. And I get DMs all the time, more on the business aspect side of things. But people are, how do I start my first business? Hey, bro, I'm 19 years old. I'm in college. I don't want to get a job. All my friends are going into finance. I don't want to get a job like them. How do I start a business? I do think the same thing sometimes. I'm like, bro, figure it out. But then I try and take a step back and think, wait a minute. I literally was this kid at 18, 19 years old. And I literally was DMing people, how do I start a business? And so it's so easy, like later in life, once I don't even have it figured out, but have like something going for you to look at that question or comment and be like, bro, come on.
Yeah.
But the reality is like, yeah, starting is the hardest part. I always say like creating the LLC is the hardest part of starting a business.
Yeah.
Even though in reality, you go and you type in your name, and you put in your date of birth, and you pay $175 on LegalZoom or whatever, and boom, you're done. But there are tens of millions of people in this country and all over the world that have great ideas, that want to do something about it, but they just never will even start because they're afraid, or they're afraid of what people think, or they don't trust themselves, whatever. And so that's why I think it's the hardest part. So starting 100%.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
And I will say, like, I answer like a fair amount of DMs, like giving people advice, and like anytime I meet anyone in person, like I talk to them and I'm just like, okay, like let me hear everything about it. Because like anytime I meet someone in person who like I guess like knows me from social media, I make the conversation about them, because like I want to get to know them. Like I haven't been presented with them in their life yet, so anytime that I get presented with questions in person, like I give like very in depth and like try to be as helpful as possible.
Sure. Yeah,
I'm not just like, nah, man, get out of it.
But 100%. He's a great guy. But something that I just want to point out here is I have this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I have on a guy in your seat every single week, someone who's incredibly successful for their age, someone who has made millions or even tens of millions of dollars, and they're in their early 20s. They have cool businesses, creative things, and I still need to figure it out on my own. Like, to be honest, I meet like multiple entrepreneurs every single week that have awesome, unique, creative businesses, and I pick their brain and I ask them questions, and I still, like, no one has really like laid the roadmap out for me. Like, I still am having to figure it out every single day.
Yeah.
And that's, I think every single person, you have to look at this as like a game.
Yeah.
And you have to go into the game knowing like, okay, yeah, I can do some research and look up some forums online of like how to level up faster, how to, go about defeating this boss in a more efficient way. But at the end of the day, like I have to play the game.
Yes.
That's what people don't realize. And it's fun. And you have to go into it not knowing what you're going to do, not knowing how to, complete the tasks, but it's something you just figure out over time through playing. But you have to actually turn on the game and start playing.
100%. And like I talk about that a lot because like likewise, like I'm very much so social media, athletic wise, like we're constant works in progress. Like every single day we're learning something new, we're developing as human beings. But it's just like you said, like you could sit back and learn every single thing. I'm gonna use like triathlons as an example. Yeah. I could have sat back and learned, proper swim form, watch videos on like proper swim form, read everything about nutrition on the bike, watched countless documentaries about runners and like have all this objective knowledge about like the sport of triathlon. But if I never step into a race itself and like test how I do individually for it, like that knowledge can never be applied to my life because like I don't know how that's going to translate to the real world. And that's like the one thing is like the human experience is so individualized. Like your life, my life, every single person lives their own life that like what works for me might not work for you. What worked for your business might not work for my, like you really have to live your life to figure out how to live your life. You can't sit back and continue to read or continue to ask other people like, hey, like what's your advice? Don't listen to anyone's advice. So, I mean, okay, that's bad. You want to take like some advice from like other people, but just
you have
like
to learn yourself.
You have to see, does that advice apply to my life? You know what I'm saying? Like, does what you're saying fit my life situation right now? Can I use that in a beneficial way to help progress me as a human being?
Yeah. Well said, dude. Well, I think that's kind of the perfect way to end it. So unless you got any last final notes or pieces of advice, I think that's kind of perfect.
I mean, just going back to like the criticism factor and like living your life, because like if you live your life how you want to innately, like there are going to be people that have like negative things to say. But I kind of live by this quote that external criticism is a direct result of internal insecurity.
Yeah.
So if someone is trying to like belittle you, or if someone is like, trying to steer you away from doing something you're genuinely passionate about, just know that it's not necessarily anything that you're doing. It's coming more so from like internal insecurities or like an internal battle that they're dealing with, and they're just projecting it onto you. So like stay true to who you are as a human being, do the shit that you want to do, and do it like relentlessly. Like give 110% effort to like the things that you love. Like don't let it be like a side task or like a hobby. Like if you're genuinely passionate about something, like do it and go all in.
What he just said about criticism and essentially a reflection of what you're feeling on the inside of your body, it's coming from someone who studied both psychology and neuroscience. So they have the educational background. They've also experienced it themselves, having put themselves out there on social media. So perfectly said by someone who has, probably as much credibility as you could possibly have on that subject. So yeah, dude, thank you for coming on. This was sick. I appreciate it.
Man. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Obviously, I'm going to link all of Luke's socials if you don't follow him already. But we'll see you in the next one. Appreciate it.